The moment Ethan Hawke stepped into the abandoned train station, he felt it, that strange electric buzz in the air. Like someone had just whispered his name in an empty room. The city was loud outside, but in here, total silence. The kind that crawled under your skin. It was Christmas Eve, and he had no idea why his feet had dragged him back to this place. Before we continue, please tell us, where in the world are you tunning in form? We love seeing how far our stories travel. We love you to subscribe our channel for more interesting single dad stories. Ethan owned one of the fastest-growing logistics tech companies on the West Coast, but tonight he looked nothing like the billionaire people saw in magazines. No tailored coat, no polished shoes, just a man in an old hoodie, hands shoved deep into his pockets, fighting the cold and the ghosts of a childhood he never talked about. He swore he'd never come back to this broken station, the spot where he'd been abandoned when he was 8 years old. But loneliness is a strange thing. It pulls you toward the places you thought you'd burned out of your memory. He was halfway across the lobby when he froze. Someone else was here. A tiny voice echoed from behind an old ticket booth. "Mom, you done yet?" Ethan's heart jolted. A kid, here, a woman's calm voice answered. "Just another minute, buddy. Keep those gloves on." Ethan stepped forward, and that's when the little boy popped out from behind the counter. Maybe 7 years old, knit hat with a crooked pom-pom, a candy cane stuck halfway into his mouth. Eyes bright like he didn't belong in a place this cold. The boy spotted Ethan instantly. "Oh, hi, mister." He waved like they'd known each other for years. Ethan blinked. "Hey, kiddo. You, shouldn't be here alone." Before the boy could answer, his mom stood up from behind the counter. She had paint on her jeans, dust on her coat, and the warmest brown eyes Ethan had ever seen. "Oh, sorry," she said, brushing her hands on her jacket. "We're doing a community cleanup. This place is getting turned into a youth arts center next spring." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "At night, on Christmas Eve." She gave a sheepish smile. "Budget's tight, gotta work the hours no one else wants." He didn't know why, but something tugged hard in his chest. The woman stepped closer. "I'm Riley. This chatterbox is my son, Leo." Leo grinned proudly. "Mom says we're saving this place. People say it's haunted, but I think it's cool." Ethan almost laughed. Haunted wasn't far from the truth. Then Leo tilted his head, studying him. "Hey, you look like you need hot chocolate." Ethan actually choked. "What? You got sad eyes," Leo said matter-of-factly. "Mom says hot chocolate fixes that," Riley groaned. "Leo." But Ethan wasn't offended. Weirdly, he felt seen. "Hot chocolate, huh?" he murmured. Leo nodded. "Yup, we got thermoses. Want some?" Ethan hesitated, but the warmth in Riley's eyes somehow cut through the cold around him. And that's when the first frightening boom echoed from deep inside the station. A crash, then another. Riley stiffened. Leo grabbed her leg. Ethan's pulse spiked. Someone else was in the building. And whatever or whoever it was, they weren't supposed to be here either. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe and return to our channel for more life-changing, emotional, and heartwarming stories. The sound came again. Heavy, dragging, too slow to belong to anyone who had good intentions. Leo's hand squeezed Riley's coat so tight his knuckles turned white. Ethan stepped forward instinctively. Old instincts. The ones he'd buried under business deals and polished interviews. The ones from growing up in places nothing like boardrooms. Riley whispered, "No one else was scheduled to be here tonight." "Then someone broke in," Ethan muttered. A loud metallic scrape echoed through the station. Leo whimpered. Ethan turned sharply. "Stay behind me." Riley opened her mouth to protest, but something about the way he stood, solid, calm, ready, made her close it again. They moved slowly toward the sound. The shadows stretched long across the cracked tile floor, the overhead lights buzzing weakly like they were scared too. The air smelled of dust and cold metal. Then a door slammed somewhere in the back. Riley jumped. Ethan didn't. He walked ahead, shoulders tense, jaw set. Why was he even doing this? He'd come here to feel sorry for himself, not to play hero. But something in him snapped into place, something protective he didn't know he still had. They reached a corridor lined with old office doors. The final door on the right was half open. Inside, faint rustling, Leo clung to Riley, whispering, "Mom, I'm scared." Riley crouched and held him close. "It's okay, baby. I'm right here." Ethan pushed the office door open slowly. A figure spun around, flashlight beam shooting straight into Ethan's face. "Don't move," a man barked, except it wasn't a criminal. It was a security guard, older, tall, with a clipboard tucked under one arm and a radio in the other. The guard blinked at Ethan, then looked past him at Riley and Leo. "What are you doing here?" the guard demanded. "This place is shut after 8, Riley sighed in relief. "Oh my gosh, Tom, you scared us half to death," Tom squinted. "Riley, kid, didn't know y'all were working tonight." "You never check your texts," Riley said, shaking her head. Ethan exhaled, tension draining from his shoulders. But before he could step back, Tom tilted his flashlight up and stared at Ethan like he recognized him. "Wait a minute," Tom muttered. "Aren't you that big tech guy? The one from the billboards?" Ethan tensed again. "Just here for a walk," he said coolly. Tom chuckled. "Sure, buddy, fancy walk," Riley blinked, surprised. "You're Ethan Hawke, as in Hawk Trans Global." Ethan cursed silently. So much for anonymity. Leo looked starstruck. "Whoa, you own those robot delivery trucks. That's so sick." Ethan rubbed his face. "Can we not do this right now?" Riley smiled, soft and curious. "Didn't expect a billionaire in a hoodie. Didn't expect a mom rebuilding a train station on Christmas Eve," he replied. Something warm flickered between them. But the moment was cut short when Tom cleared his throat. "You three shouldn't stay here," he said, voice shifting. "There's been stuff, break-ins. Folks say someone's been sleeping in the tunnels underneath." Ethan felt a chill. "Tunnels?" he asked. Tom nodded grimly. "Yeah. And earlier tonight I heard noises. Thought it was rats. Now I'm not so sure." The air thickened. Riley picked Leo up. "We should go." But as they turned toward the exit, a faint echo drifted up through the vents near the floor. A voice. A child's voice. Crying. Ethan froze, and he knew that sound better than anyone alive. The faint sobbing drifted up from the old grate like a ghostly echo. Riley's breath hitched. Leo pressed his face into her shoulder. Ethan didn't move. He couldn't. Because the sound, the tiny, broken sniffle, was the exact same sound he used to make at 8 years old, hiding in this very station, terrified someone might never come for him. Riley whispered, "Ethan, are you okay?" No, he wasn't, but he crouched anyway, pressing his ear to the vent. The sobbing came again. A child, alone, underground. Tom cursed softly. "Not again," Ethan's head snapped up. "Again," Tom hesitated. "Look, rumors go back months. People said a runaway kid was hidden down there. I checked tons of times, never found nothing, figured it was just old urban legends." Ethan's chest tightened. Hard. "Urban legends don't cry," he muttered. Riley shivered. "We should call someone." Ethan shook his head. "By the time help gets here, the tunnels will swallow the kid up. Trust me, I know this place." Tom squinted. "How would you?" But Ethan was already lifting the grate. The metal screeched loudly, echoing through the empty station. Riley reached out. "Ethan, wait, those tunnels are dangerous. They're unstable. There's debris, old tracks. I'm not leaving a kid down there," he said sharply. Riley stared into his eyes and saw something raw, an old wound ripped open. She turned to Tom. "Is there another entrance?" "Yeah," Tom said reluctantly. "Maintenance hatch, east wing." Ethan didn't wait for directions. He jogged toward the east corridor, hood falling back as he moved with an urgency Riley didn't understand yet. She hurried after him, Leo clinging to her. Ethan. Slow down, but he didn't. Not until he reached the rusted metal hatch at the end of the hall. He gripped the wheel lock and yanked. It resisted, groaning like it hadn't been opened in decades. Riley stepped beside him and helped twist. Tom joined too. With all three working, the lock finally cracked open. Cold air blasted upward from below, damp, musty, metallic. Leo whimpered. "That smell," Ethan whispered. "I remember that smell," Riley frowned. "Ethan, did you used to come down here?" He didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed the ladder and started down. "Ethan," Riley hissed, "you're not going alone. Leo and I will wait here, but Tom, go with him." Tom grumbled but followed. The hatch slammed behind them, sealing Riley and Leo in the hallway. Down below, the darkness swallowed Ethan instantly. Only Tom's flashlight cut through the thick black. "Stay close," Tom muttered, but Ethan wasn't listening. His ears were locked on the faint sobbing that was growing louder with every step they took along the narrow tunnel. Then Tom froze. "Ethan," he whispered, "look." At the end of the passage, a small figure huddled under an old staircase, shaking violently, surrounded by scattered blankets and broken crates. A child, but when the child lifted their head, Ethan staggered back. Because that face, he knew it. He'd seen it in old case files. He'd seen it in missing posters. He'd even seen it in nightmares. The child whispered, "Please, don't leave me again." And the truth about who this child was would shatter everything Ethan thought he'd escaped. Ethan's legs went numb. The boy under the staircase wasn't just any runaway. He was the spitting image of Ethan at 8 years old. Same dark eyes, same hollowed cheeks. Same look of someone who'd waited too long for someone who never came. Tom whispered, "Holy, he looks just like—" "I know," Ethan said, voice cracking. The boy flinched at the sound, curling tighter around his thin coat. "Don't hit me," he begged softly. "I'll be quiet, I'll be good." Ethan's throat closed. "No one's hitting you," he said, kneeling slowly. "You're safe, I swear." The boy peeked at him. "You came back." Ethan froze. "What? You said you would," the child whispered. "But then you never did. I waited." Ethan's skin went cold. Tom stepped forward. "Kid, you must be confused. This man—" "No," Ethan breathed, eyes wide. "He's not confused." Memories hit him like fists. He did meet a boy here once, much younger than him. A toddler abandoned near the lockers. Ethan had promised he'd get help. But when he'd run to find a police officer, everything spiraled. He'd been taken into custody. The boy had disappeared. No one believed Ethan that the toddler had been real. They said he'd been hallucinating, scared, imagining things. But he hadn't. That toddler grew up, alone, in the tunnels, because no one ever found him. Ethan's voice cracked. "Kid, what's your name?" The boy swallowed. "People call me Flick." "Why? If you flick the lights down here, sometimes I show up." He forced a tiny smile. "I hide good." Ethan felt like the floor was tilting. "How long have you been down here?" Flick shrugged. "I dunno, long time, years maybe. I go up sometimes, but people don't see me." Tom rubbed his forehead. "This is insane. A kid living under a city station for years. How? Systems fail kids all the time," Ethan said bitterly. "I should know." Flick's eyes welled. "You didn't forget me, did you?" The words nearly broke him. Ethan reached out a hand. "No. I didn't forget. I thought—" His voice shook. "I thought you were safe." Flick slowly extended his trembling hand and placed it in Ethan's. The moment their palms touched, Flick let out a sob and collapsed into Ethan's arms. But the moment wasn't safe for long. A violent rumble shook the tunnel, dust falling from the ceiling. Tom cursed. "Construction's unstable down here. We gotta move now." Ethan scooped Flick up, the boy shockingly light. "Hold on, buddy." They ran. The tunnel shook again, louder, harsher. Riley's terrified voice echoed from above. "Ethan, Tom." He looked up just in time to see the ladder tremble violently. Tom shouted, "G.O." G.O., Ethan climbed as debris rained down. When he reached the top, Riley's face was frantic. She grabbed Flick first, then helped Ethan up. Tom scrambled behind them, slamming the hatch shut as the tunnel roared below. They all collapsed to the floor, coughing. Riley's eyes darted to Flick. "Oh my gosh, Ethan, who is he?" Ethan looked at the small boy clinging to his hoodie. "He's someone I lost a long time ago." Flick whispered, "You found me now." Riley placed a shaking hand over her mouth. But before they could speak again, Leo peeked around Riley's coat and said, "Hi, I'm Leo. Want some hot chocolate?" Flick blinked like he'd never heard words like that. But saving Flick was only the beginning, and the danger inside the station wasn't done with them yet. Riley bundled Flick in her coat, rubbing his arms to warm him. Leo handed over a thermos, his small voice gentle. "It's the good cocoa, too, with mini marshmallows." Flick stared suspiciously, as if kindness was the strangest thing anyone had ever given him, then took a tiny sip. His entire body flinched. "It's warm," he whispered in awe. Ethan swallowed the ache rising in his chest. "Yeah, kid, that's kinda the point." Tom leaned heavily against a pillar, wheezing. "Tunnel almost collapsed on us. We need to evacuate this whole place, tonight." But Riley wasn't looking at Tom. Her eyes were locked on Ethan. "You knew him," she said softly, "before tonight." Ethan's voice was low. "Not exactly. But I should have saved him when I had the chance." Riley frowned. "Tell me." He hesitated, then sat down beside Flick, voice thick. "When I was 8, I lived in the streets. I hid in this station a lot. One night, I found a toddler. Abandoned, I promised him I'd get help." Riley's heart twisted. "Ethan, I got grabbed by police before I could bring anyone back." His voice trembled with old shame. "By the time they released me, the kid was gone. Nobody believed he existed. They said I made it up." Flick tugged Ethan's sleeve. "I remember a boy, a big one. You had a red hat." Ethan's breath caught. "Yeah, I did." Riley's eyes softened. "Ethan, you were a child yourself." "Doesn't matter." Ethan shook his head. "I left him behind." Flick leaned into him, whispering, "You came back." Before Ethan could reply, the security lights overhead flickered violently. Bang. A loud crash echoed from the far end of the station. Tom grabbed his flashlight. "That wasn't just debris. Someone else is still inside." Riley hugged Leo close. "Why would anyone be here this late?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Tunnels like these attract people running from something, or towards something worse." Leo tugged Riley's hand. "Mom, can we go home now?" Riley opened her mouth, but Flick suddenly shoved himself deeper into Ethan's side, shaking uncontrollably. "No home," Flick whispered. "Please, don't make me go." Ethan pulled him close. "No one's forcing you anywhere." But Riley frowned, confused. "Ethan, where's he been sleeping? How has he been eating?" "Kids can't survive underground alone." Tom sighed heavily. "Riley, some parts of this city are rough. Folks slip through cracks. If someone's been helping him, we need to know who." Flick's eyes darted with fear. "I can't say." Ethan crouched to meet his gaze. "Buddy, whoever scared you, they're not here now. You're safe." But Flick shook his head violently. "No, they'll come back. They always come back. They said if I ever talked, bad things would happen." Ethan felt ice crawl up his spine. "Who?" he whispered. Flick opened his mouth, but the lights cut out. Total darkness swallowed the station. A deep, heavy voice echoed from the shadows. "Step away from the boy." Riley clutched Leo. Tom raised his flashlight. Ethan stood slowly, shielding Flick with his body. Because the man stepping out of the darkness wasn't a stranger to Flick, and he wasn't a stranger to Ethan either. Tom's flashlight flickered back to life, its beam slicing through the pitch black. And there, emerging from the shadows, stood a tall, broad man with a scar cutting across his jaw. Ethan's blood ran cold. Riley felt Ethan stiffen. "Ethan, do you know him?" Ethan's voice dropped to a whisper. "Yeah." The man stepped forward. "Hello, Ethan," Riley's breath hitched. The way he said Ethan's name felt too familiar, too dangerous. Flick whimpered behind Ethan, burying his face in his hoodie. The man smirked. "Still playing hero, I see, just like when you were a kid." Tom positioned himself between the group and the stranger. "This is private property. You need to leave." The man didn't even glance at Tom. His eyes were locked entirely on Ethan. "It's been a long time," the man murmured. "Didn't expect to see you again, especially not with him." He nodded toward Flick. Ethan clenched his fists. "Get away from the kid." The man gave a cold, hollow laugh. "Oh, Ethan, you think I'm here for him?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "You stayed down here with him, didn't you?" Riley gasped softly. Flick's voice cracked as he whispered. "He said he'd keep me safe, but he lied." The man didn't deny it. Instead, he tilted his head, studying Ethan like he was a puzzle missing a few pieces. "You always had a bleeding heart, kid. First time I saw you in those tunnels years ago, I knew you'd never make it far," Ethan growled. "Yet here I am." "Oh, trust me," the man said, stepping closer. "I've been watching." Ethan's stomach dropped. "Watching what?" "You," the man grinned. "Your fancy tech empire, your interviews, saw you smile for the cameras, thought, look at him, forgot where he came from." Riley whispered, "Ethan, who is he?" Ethan finally said the name he'd buried for years. "Marcus." Tom's grip on his flashlight tightened. "Marcus Wade, the same guy wanted for trafficking minors, that Marcus." Riley's heart slammed against her ribs. Marcus smirked. "Funny thing about rumors. Some are true." He turned his gaze on Flick. "And you little shadow, you weren't supposed to run off." Flick let out a strangled sob. Ethan shoved Flick behind him. "You're not touching him again." Marcus raised a brow. "Relax, Ethan. I'm not here for him. The boy's loyalty is already gone, useless now." He stepped closer, smile fading into something darker. "No, I'm here for you." Ethan stood taller. "Why?" Marcus's answer chilled the air. "You cost me money, kid. Back then, when you told the police you saw a toddler, my whole operation got raided, lost everything, took years to rebuild." Ethan's pulse thrashed. "I was 8. "Doesn't matter," Marcus spat. "You were the reason," Riley gasped. "Ethan, he's dangerous. We need to." But Marcus pulled a knife from his coat, blade glinting under the weak security light. "Time to settle old debts." Tom stepped between them. "You're not laying a finger on anyone." Marcus lunged. Tom tackled him, both men crashing into a row of metal chairs. "Run!" Tom shouted. Ethan grabbed Flick and Leo, pulling Riley toward the exit, but the station doors were slammed shut from the outside. Heavy, locked, Ethan pounded on them. Riley's voice shook. "We're trapped." Behind them, Marcus roared as he and Tom struggled violently. And the station, becoming their prison, was only the second worst problem, because Marcus wasn't fighting alone. A second set of footsteps thundered across the balcony above. Riley's scream caught in her throat. "There's more of them." Ethan spun around just as a second man, muscular, hooded, jumped down from the ledge, landing hard enough to shake dust from the rafters. Leo cried out and clung to Riley. Flick hid behind Ethan, trembling violently. Marcus shouted from the floor, wrestling with Tom, "Grab THEM!" The hooded man charged. Ethan shoved Flick and Leo toward Riley. "Stay behind me." Riley pulled both boys close as Ethan braced himself. When the attacker swung, Ethan dodged, grabbed a broken plank from the floor and deflected the blow. Years of buried reflexes kicked in, reflexes from defending himself on the streets before he ever saw a safe bed. The hooded man snarled. "You think you're tough, big shot?" Ethan countered with a swift strike that cracked across the man's forearm. "Try me." Marcus kicked Tom off him and staggered to his feet. Blood trickled down his forehead. "You're macking this harder than it has to be, Ethan." Ethan raised the plank again, jaw set, eyes burning. "Good." Marcus lunged again, but Tom wrestled him down a second time. Riley grabbed a fallen pipe and rushed forward, swinging with surprising force. Clang. She hit Marcus across the back, hard. The man slumped forward. Tom blinked at her. "Remind me never to piss you off," Riley panted. "Consider it noted." Ethan fought the hooded man hand to hand, their bodies slamming into benches, breaking old wood. At one point, the attacker grabbed Ethan by the throat and slammed him against the wall. Ethan gasped for air. Flick screamed, "Stop! Don't hurt him!" The outburst distracted the attacker for half a second, just enough for Ethan to knee him in the stomach, grab his jacket, and throw him over his shoulder. The man hit the floor with a howl. Ethan staggered back, coughing. Riley rushed to him. "Are you okay?" He nodded, breathless. "Yeah, you." "Fine, mostly terrified." Leo tugged her sleeve. "Mom, why is this happening?" Riley kissed his head. "Because some people are bad, but good people fight back." Flick peeked out from behind Ethan, voice shaking. "They chased me for weeks. They said they'd take me somewhere safe. But kids never came back." Ethan's jaw clenched. "They're not taking you anywhere." Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, growing louder. Tom grinned despite the bruise swelling on his cheek. "Backup's coming," Marcus cursed. "Damn it, Jard, move." The hooded man struggled to his feet, desperate. Ethan stepped forward. "It's over, Marcus." Marcus's eyes flicked to the boys, cold, calculating. "No, it's not." He grabbed a fallen chair leg and hurled it toward Flick. Ethan threw himself in front of the boy, shielding him as the wood smashed against his shoulder. He groaned in pain. Flick sobbed, "Ethan!" Police sirens screeched right outside the building. Flashing lights strobed through the windows. Marcus snarled and bolted toward a side exit. Tom lunged to stop him, but the floor above groaned ominously. Riley screamed, "Tom, move!" The upper balcony collapsed. Wood and metal crashed down. When the dust settled, Marcus was unconscious beneath the debris. The hooded man was pinned. Tom barely rolled out of the way. Police stormed in seconds later. Guns drawn, commands shouted. The chaos finally came to an end. Riley collapsed to her knees, hugging Leo and Flick both. Ethan sank beside them, exhausted, holding all three close. The nightmare was over, or so they thought. Because as Flick clung to Ethan's shirt, he whispered something that froze Ethan's blood. "That man, Marcus, he wasn't the one in charge." The real threat hadn't shown his face yet, and he was closer than any of them realized. The police swarmed the station, medics checking everyone. Officers carried Marcus and the pinned attacker out on stretchers. Tom sat wrapped in a blanket, muttering complaints but clearly relieved to be alive. But Ethan wasn't thinking about any of that. He knelt beside Flick, brushing dust from his hair. "Buddy, what did you mean? Marcus wasn't in charge?" Flick nodded slowly. "He said he worked for someone. Someone who owned the tunnels. Someone who wanted kids who wouldn't be missed." Riley shivered. "That's horrifying." Leo hugged Flick tightly. "You're not going anywhere with anyone bad ever again." Flick's lip quivered. "Can I stay with you?" "Just tonight." Ethan looked at Riley, heart twisting. "We'll figure it out together." Riley's eyes softened. "Yeah, we will." An officer approached, clipboard in hand. "We need statements from all of you. And the boy, social services, will need to." Flick immediately hid behind Ethan, shaking. "No, please, don't take me." The officer raised his hands. "Hey, easy. No one's taking him anywhere tonight. He'll stay with the people he trusts." Ethan exhaled. Riley squeezed Flick's shoulder. Hours passed, statements were taken. Crime scene photos snapped. Eventually, the officers cleared them to leave. Outside, snow drifted peacefully, as if unaware of the chaos inside the station. Riley bundled Leo in her scarf. Ethan lifted Flick into his arms, the boy instantly resting his head on his shoulder. "Where are we going?" Flick murmured. Ethan looked at Riley. Riley looked at him. Her voice was soft. My place is small, but it's warm and safe. Ethan smiled faintly. Safe sounds good. They walked together down the snowy street. Flick kept one arm around Ethan's neck. Leo held his mom's hand but kept glancing back at Flick like checking he was still there. Halfway home, Riley spoke. Ethan, you didn't have to risk everything for him, for us. He shook his head. Yeah, I did, she smiled. Why? He looked at Flick, then at her, then at Leo. Because I know what it's like to feel empty on Christmas Eve, he said quietly. And because you three, you made it feel less empty. Riley's cheeks flushed in the cold. You did the same for us. At her apartment, she fumbled with her keys, laughing nervously. Sorry, hands are shaking. Ethan stood close behind her. After tonight makes sense. Inside, warmth greeted them instantly. Riley turned on the soft lights. Leo grabbed blankets. Flick stared around the room like he'd stepped into another universe. He whispered, "It's cozy." Riley touched his cheek gently. You're safe here now. Ethan sat beside Flick on the couch. You're not alone anymore, kid. Flick whispered, neither are you. Riley met Ethan's gaze. Something unspoken lingered in the space between them, gratitude, fear, hope, all tangled up. Ethan's voice softened. I'm not going anywhere, Riley smiled. Good, because we kind of like having you around. Leo crawled onto Ethan's lap. Flick leaned against his side. Riley sat next to him, their shoulders touching. Outside, snow continued to fall. Inside, for the first time in years, Ethan felt like he'd walked into a home instead of away from one. No borrowed light, just shared light, chosen light, a beginning. The end,